My name is Claire. I'm 27. The first time I turned the key to my historic loft, I didn't film it. I didn't post a "we did it" carousel with a lo-fi beat. I just stood on the old wooden floors and let my lungs relearn what quiet is supposed to sound like. Not the kind of quiet I grew up with. But that quiet was gone. I walked in and there they were, my father Kenneth and my mother Karen sitting on my sofa. My mother smiled that bright, empty smile. "Oh, you're home. We figured you wouldn't mind. We've decided to make this a family property." Have you ever felt like the invisible one in your own family? Let me know your story down in the comments. I didn't scream. I didn't ask, "How dare you?" I just watched them. My mother Karen mistook my silence for agreement. It was a mistake she had made my entire life. "See, it's so much better now that we're all here," she said, walking over to my antique refrigerator. She tapped a piece of paper taped to the door. "I even made a chart so everything is fair." I walked closer. It wasn't a chart. It was an invoice for a life I never asked for. The family expense chart. The items were listed in my mother's neat, bubbly handwriting. Item 1, Claire's rent. In parentheses, retroactive, 18 years living at home. Item 2, utilities split 3 ways. Item 3, lifestyle upgrades for Ashley's creative needs. My vision tunneled. Retroactive. Rent. For being a child. They weren't just invading my present, they were billing me for my past. We took the master bedroom, of course. My father, Kenneth, called out from the hallway. He wasn't even looking at me. "The light is better for your mother's reading. You can take the small room by the entrance. It'll be quieter for you anyway." Quieter. As if my entire existence hadn't been defined by their noise. "And Ashley's here too," Mom added brightly. "She's taken the guest room. It's really the perfect backdrop for her influencing career. She's setting up her creative space right now." I looked toward the guest room. The door was open. I could see the harsh white light of a ring light, already set up a tripod, and 3 designer suitcases empty sprawled across the floor. My sister Ashley, 29 years old, was monetizing my guest room. They were so comfortable, so entitled. They had walked into my sanctuary, the one place on earth I had built for myself, this historic loft that I loved for its flaws, for the brick and the old wood, and they had colonized it in a matter of hours. I could smell the food they'd brought. I could see their coats on my hooks, their shoes by my door. They ate my food, they were sleeping in my bed, and they were now handing me a bill for the privilege of their presence. I just stood there. I let the silence stretch. They expected a fight. They expected tears. They expected the dramatic Claire they had always complained about. What they didn't expect was the Claire who had spent years restoring old books. The Claire who knew that to fix something truly broken, you don't use force. You use patience. You use precision. And you use tools they don't even know you have. My family expected me to scream. They were waiting for the tears. They were braced for the dramatic Claire, the one they had created and then complained about for 20 years. But that Claire was gone. I just stood there letting their expectations hang in the air, heavy and useless. Then I turned slowly and walked to my workbench, the corner of the loft where I restore old books. My kintsugi bowl was there, half-finished pieces of shattered pottery being carefully reassembled with gold lacquer. A reminder that you can be broken and still be beautiful and stronger for it. I walked back to the kitchen right past my mother. I pulled her family expense chart off the refrigerator. The paper felt flimsy in my hand. I didn't rip it. I just calmly crumpled it into a tight, angry ball and dropped it into the recycling bin. "Claire, what do you think my mother started?" I ignored her. From my desk, I picked up a single sheet of paper I had printed 2 years ago. I walked back to the refrigerator, and using the same magnets, I taped it up in place of her chart. It read Official Policy Notice CN Rare Book Restoration Trust. My father squinted at it. "What is this?" Some kind of joke. Karen and Ashley came closer, reading the formal legal text. "Monday," I said. My voice was quiet, but it cut through the room. 10 a.m. All unauthorized occupants must vacate the premises. They just stared at me. The confusion on their faces was palpable. My family expected me to scream. They were waiting for the drama, the breakdown. They live on that kind of emotional chaos. But they don't understand my silence. They don't get that this quiet isn't weakness. It's a practiced survival strategy. It's a suit of armor I've been building for decades. You learn not to react when you know every reaction will be weaponized against you. Every tear is manipulation. Every angry word is proof you're unstable. So you learn to go still. You learn to observe. You learn to build invisible chains around your own emotions until you're ready to use them. You wait until you have leverage. I had spent my entire life being an emotional victim in their story. So 2 years ago, I decided to become a legal entity instead. Unauthorized. Occupants, my mother whispered the words catching in her throat. Claire, that's us. We're your family. Your guests. I corrected her, my voice still perfectly level. And your stay is over, Monday, 10 a.m. They think I built this wall of paper out of spite. They're wrong. I built it out of experience. I wasn't always this methodical. I used to be the one who hoped. The one who believed that this time, this birthday, this holiday, it would be different. The moment that hope finally died was 3 years ago. My grandfather, my mom's dad, passed away. He was a quiet man who loved woodworking and always smelled like sawdust. He left me and my sister Ashley $15,000 each. It was the first time in my life I had something that was truly undeniably mine. A week later, my parents called an emergency family dinner. Ashley, fresh off another failed internship, had a new dream. She was going to be a luxury real estate agent. She just needed, as my mother put it, a little seed money for the courses and the professional wardrobe. Claire, you're so good at saving, my mother said, smiling at me over the dinner table. Ashley just needs a boost. You should lend her your inheritance. Family helps family, right? Lend, that was the word they used. My father, Kenneth, nodded. It's an investment, Claire. An investment in your sister. I looked at Ashley. She was already scrolling through designer websites on her phone. I did it. I transferred the full $15,000. I thought, maybe this is it. Maybe this is the gesture that finally makes them see me. Maybe this buys my way into the circle. A month later, Ashley posted her first business update from a beachfront cabana in Bali. She'd used my grandfather's money, my money, to find her personal brand on a 2-week luxury vacation. She failed the real estate exam twice before deciding the industry wasn't a good fit for her vibe. I never saw a penny of that $15,000 again. That's when I understood. They would never, ever stop taking. They saw my stability as their surplus, my savings as their emergency fund, my inheritance as their vacation plan. A few weeks later, I was restoring a collection of 18th century botany books for a client. His financial advisor, Luke, came by to handle the insurance appraisal. He wasn't like my family. He was quiet, observant. He watched me work for 20 minutes, then asked, "How do you protect your assets?" I almost laughed. "What assets?" "Your skill," he said. "Your time. Your future." That night over coffee, I told him the Bali story. He didn't say that's awful. He said that's a predictable pattern. Luke taught me that boundaries, real boundaries, aren't emotional. They aren't arguments you have over dinner. They are structural. They are legal. He showed me how to build a fortress, not out of anger, but out of paper. So I didn't just save up to buy this loft. I formed the CN Rare Book Restoration Trust. The trust bought the loft. I don't own it. The trust does. And I am simply the sole manager bound by the bylaws I wrote myself. Bylaws that define occupancy. Bylaws that require formal lease agreements. Bylaws that make no exceptions for people who share your DNA. It's a wall they can't cry their way through. It's a contract they can't guilt trip. I wasn't just buying a home. I was buying my freedom. I just never thought I'd have to use it. My official policy notice was treated like a joke. A cute little tantrum from the quiet sister. By Sunday morning, my family was back to performing their normal lives, just in my space. I woke up to the smell of burnt coffee and the sound of my phone buzzing. My feed was already active. My mother, Karen, had posted on Facebook at 7 a.m. A picture of a sunrise captioned, "It's heartbreaking when some children forget who raised them. Praying for clarity." Clarity, as if I was the one who was confused. A minute later, my sister Ashley's Instagram story went live. She was preening in front of my antique mirror using a filter that blurred everything into beige. "Hey guys, welcome to my new creative HQ," she chirped, panning her phone across my living room. My poor sister is having a bit of a moment. She's super jealous of the new vibe, but we'll let her calm down. She tagged it number boss babe, number Savannah, number family drama. She was using my eviction notice as content. That was it. That was the final click. The calm I'd been holding on to didn't break. It sharpened. I called Christopher, the trust's lawyer. "They're not just ignoring the notice, Christopher," I said, my voice low. "They're monetizing it." "I'll be there in an hour," he said. Christopher wasn't like Luke. He wasn't a friend. He was a 60-year-old former litigator who specialized in hostile trust management. He wore three-piece suits and smelled like expensive ink. He was, in short, exactly who I needed. He arrived at 9:30 a.m., looking like he owned the entire city block. My parents were in the kitchen arguing about what groceries to let me buy. "Good morning," Christopher said, stepping into the loft. His voice was so polite it was threatening. "Who are you, my father?" Kenneth asked, crossing his arms. "I'm Christopher, legal counsel for the C.N. Rare Book Restoration Trust. I'm here to serve you with a formal notice to vacate." He placed a thick bound document on my now clean kitchen counter. "This is harassment," Karen snapped. "This is our daughter's home." "Actually, ma'am," Christopher said, "this is the trust's property. Your daughter Claire is the manager, and as manager she is legally bound by the bylaws to remove unauthorized occupants, which is you." He gestured to the mail piled on the side table. "You've also been illegally redirecting your mail to this address, including I see Mr. Kenneth's driver's license and several credit card statements. That's mail fraud. It complicates your legal position significantly." My father went pale. My mother looked at me, her eyes filled with betrayal, as if I was the one who had done something wrong. "You're enjoying this, aren't you?" Ashley sneered from the hallway. "All this legal drama." "I'm just following policy," I said. As if on cue, the building's main buzzer rang. "That'll be for me," Christopher said. He went downstairs, and when he returned, he was holding a certified mail envelope. He didn't hand it to me. He looked at my father. "Mr. Kenneth, this is also addressed to you. Here, at this address." My father took the letter, his hands shaking slightly as he tore it open. My mother read over his shoulder. I watched her face go from annoyed to confused to absolutely white. She stumbled back and had to grab the counter for support. "Karen, what is it?" Ashley asked. It's, My father couldn't speak. He just dropped the letter. Christopher bent down, picked it up, and read the heading aloud in that same calm, polite voice. "Final notice of foreclosure. Dear Mr. and Mrs. Henderson, your property will be sold at public auction." My goodness. He looked up at them. "It appears the real reason you're here isn't for a family reunion at all. It's because you're homeless." That was the moment I finally understood. It wasn't just about greed. It was about shame. There's a reason a family that's losing everything suddenly becomes so arrogant. It's the illusion of power that comes from an empty wallet. My family's entire identity wasn't built on being anything, not on kindness, not on integrity, not on character. It was built on having things. Having the right house in the right neighborhood, having the successful daughter, having the appearance of stability. Their status was just a costume they'd rented with credit. And when the bank came to repossess that costume, when they lost their house, they didn't just lose a building. They lost themselves. They were hollow. So they came here. They didn't come to me for help, they came to take. They came to claim my stability, my home, my life, to wear it like their new costume. They needed to maintain the illusion that they were still in control, that they were still the ones in charge. They weren't just visitors. They were invaders trying to feed off the life I'd built because their own had completely rotted from the inside out. My mother looked at me, her eyes desperate. "Claire, please, you don't understand." "Oh," I said, my voice coming out colder than I expected. "I think for the first time, I finally do." Monday morning, 9:59 a.m. I was sitting at my workbench, sanding the edge of a broken piece of pottery. The loft was suffocatingly quiet. My family was frozen. They hadn't packed. They were just sitting in my living room, staring at the front door as if daring it to move. My mother Karen was visibly trembling. My father Kenneth just looked old. Ashley was texting furiously, probably complaining to friends who didn't care. The clock on the wall ticked over. 10 a.m. Exactly on time, there was a sharp professional knock. My family flinched. I didn't. I put down the sandpaper, stood up, and walked to the door. I opened it. A man in a blue work uniform stood there holding a metal toolbox. "CN Trust?" he asked. "That's right," I said. "Come on in." The moment the locksmith stepped over the threshold, the spell broke. No. My mother Karen scrambled off the sofa. She rushed to the door, her face pale, and streaked with real tears this time. "Claire, please. You can't do this. We have nowhere to go. The house is. It's gone." She grabbed my arm, her nails digging in. "We're your family. You can't just put us on the street." I looked at her. I looked at her hand on my arm, the desperation in her eyes, and I felt nothing, just an old, cold echo. "I gave you $15,000, Mom," I said, my voice as quiet as the loft used to be. "I gave you my grandfather's inheritance because Ashley needed a boost. I was there. I've always been there." I pulled my arm free. "But when I finally built one safe place for myself, you didn't just ask to stay. You invaded. You put a price tag on my childhood and tried to bill me for it. You told me I wasn't in charge of my own home. We made a mistake, she cried. No, I said. It wasn't a mistake. It was a pattern. And I'm just the one who's finally stopping it. I looked past her to the locksmith who was politely pretending to study his drill bits. You can start with the deadbolt, please. Claire, my father yelled, finally, standing up. You stop this right now. I turned back to them, to the three of them, standing there finally united in their panic. This isn't a family, I said. It's a hostile takeover, and I'm just evicting the invaders. I looked at my mother one last time. Goodbye, Mom. And I closed the door in her face. I didn't lock it. I just held the knob standing on my side of the wood as the sound of the electric drill began to whir. It was the loudest, most beautiful sound I had ever heard. The drill stopped. 20 minutes later, the locksmith packed up his tools. You're all set, ma'am. That's a high-security lock. No one's getting through that without your key. Thank you, I said. He left. I closed the door, and this time I turned the deadbolt myself. The click of the new lock settling into place was the cleanest, most final sound I had ever heard. I stood alone in my loft. The silence was back. But it wasn't the fragile quiet I'd had before. It was solid. It was structural. It was mine. I walked back to my workbench to the shattered kintsugi bowl. I picked up the next broken piece, carefully mixed the gold lacquer, and applied it to the edge. I fitted it into place, my hands perfectly steady. I wasn't just fixing a bowl. I was building a boundary. I was showing myself that a life can be broken and still be put back together, not to hide the cracks, but to make them the strongest, most beautiful part. 6 months later, I stood on a quiet street in Savannah's historic district. A painter was finishing the gold leaf lettering on a glass storefront. It read, "The Gilded Page Rare Book and Paper Restoration." Behind the glass was my studio, my work, my future. And yes, it is owned and operated entirely by the CN Rare Book Restoration Trust, because you don't build a fortress just to leave the back door unlocked. If you're here, if you've made it this far, maybe you felt it too. That feeling of being on the fringes of your own family. The invisible one. The quiet one. The one who is always expected to be reasonable, to take up less space, to absorb the chaos of others, and never create any of your own. I want you to hear this. You do not need their permission to be worthy. You don't need their invitation to build your own table. Your real legacy isn't the role they assigned you. Your legacy is the peace you build for yourself. It's the life you restore, piece by piece until it's stronger than it was before. You are not invisible. You just haven't been seen. Yet. Thank you for listening to my story.